All right, good evening. This is Tuesday, September 20th, meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. And as a preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and all of the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything you decide to screen share on your computer or anything you broadcast will be captured and recorded. Let me confirm that we have a quorum. Carolyn,
Here.
Julie,
Here.
MJ, Eloise, and Tim. Perfect.
So June needs to be appointed as well then.
Well, we haven't discussed that with June,
Oh.
so, and June may say she doesn't want to be appointed, but at some point, someone from their committee will be, but we can chat about that later.
Sorry, June.
Nice try, though. Since we have a quorum, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:32. The meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency. We're using the Zoom platform. The governor's order suspends the requirement for the open meeting law to have all meetings held in a publicly accessible physical location, allows and encourages us to participate remotely. And please speak clearly so accurate minutes are recorded. Each vote in the meeting will be conducted by a roll call. Thank you very much. People have the agenda, I believe. And does anybody anticipate anything else that we need to add to the agenda that isn't already on it? Perfect. Minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the 31st?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any additions or corrections? I think there's one vote where
I don't know how to
MJ
I didn't add properly, that one.
there's one that's MJ is abstaining and Eloise is voting, and it probably
Okay.
was the other way around.
Well, and I'm not, math has never been my strength. So I've just found one myself, actually, too. It was 3 yeses, 1 abstain, which I actually had 4, which equals 4. So anyways, I'll correct that too. So,
Okay.
and I'll look
Anything
for
else
that.
anybody's got? Carolyn's all smiles. I know that.
I am. It's wonderful to not have to take the minutes anymore.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise, and Tim is aye. Eloise is abstain. Oh, she's abstaining.
Oh,
Oh,
I said aye.
well, you were muted. It's unanimous. Perfect. Invoices. We don't have any bills to pay.
excellent.
We've, you voted that I could sign Maureen's pay reports, and we've done that. I was tardy, but we've done that at least, so we're off and running on that. So the next item is the Community Preservation Plan update. And since June is a guest and may not want to stick around for the whole meeting, we can start with June, if June happens to have any thoughts about the section on historical. Are you content the way it is, June, or do you see some stuff
Well,
you want to change?
I read it over. I think that the bullets at the end of the summary are okay. I'm not so sure I like some of the wording in the, in the body of the body of the background statement. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's just not terribly exciting. But so I might tweak that a little. I'm not prepared to do it right now, but
No, but I mean, if that's something, if you want to make some suggestions, that would be great. I looked at West Newbury's today,
mhm,
and I thought it was rather interesting because it got into a lot more detail and tried to generate some excitement, I would say, about some of the projects, and in the historical section, they really listed a lot more specific, like cemetery work and archival work and certain structures in town that they, like it might, in our case, it might include the West School, or it might include things other than just the Bullard House, that sort of stuff. So
mhm.
if you want to look at West, you can just go on their, if you go on the Community Preservation Consortium's website and you look at technical assistance, I think, and it'll say, if you want to look at some plans from some other towns, you can look at West Newbury, and you might
Okay.
say, and there's some others on there too, but it might stimulate some thought as to some of the modifications you might want to consider.
Okay.
So Tim, can I ask a question?
God, yes.
All right. Is the idea with this plan for it to be more of a working document that as we see things needing to add to it, we can do that as long as we come back to the committee and we all vote on that to add in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea is, well, and there's some other stuff too that we might be able to add, but if you look at some of these other towns, it's a document that changes. Theoretically, you're supposed to hold a public hearing when you approve the plan. So at some point, we've got to schedule a public hearing, and if we were to decide tonight that there's additional changes that we want to make, we can, next time we meet, we can work it over a little more, and then eventually we can schedule a public hearing and have public input to the plan as well. But I think initially our plan was pretty bare bones. And again, if you look at some of these other towns, they get pretty specific, because they really try to identify projects. And the state more and more all the time has tried to get towns to be specific about where it is they intend to spend funds in a number of different areas, whether it's planning board with some of the master plan stuff that we do, or the Conservation Commission with the open space plan. And I think that's probably what they expect us to eventually arrive at with the community preservation plan too. So
I was looking online at Concord's plan. Theirs is amazingly thorough.
yeah,
But one of the things, and I scanned a lot of it, but well, what I saw, I scanned. Let me put it that way. But one of the things that stood out was they list how much they get every year, how much they raise in taxes, and how much they got as a match on a table right at the very beginning. And so I thought that might be something we want to include at some point.
well, I'm glad you said that, because I sent you a few minutes ago West Newbury's table, which is the same approach. And I thought we probably would benefit by using that. If you want to open up that email I sent you, it's an attachment. You can throw it up on the screen if you want.
Would you like me to, Tim?
Because I think when I talked to
not there.
Linda Galoni from Hudson, that's what they tend to do in their plan. They begin to include, as they progress, what they've done in the past in terms of expenditures and projects. And that's what this table from West Newbury does, which is similar, I suspect, to what Concord did. And that way you have that accountability. People can go to the plan and quickly look at, and the West Newbury one divides it up into each of the 3 buckets, and then shows how much they generated on an annual basis, and then what projects they expended the funds on.
So I've
Well,
got that.
in our one for this past one, it did include what we were getting as matching from the state, so that was one of the things I was looking at in terms of what we need to update, was if we were saying how much we got in 2021, then we're gonna say how much we're getting in 2022. So if we're
Yeah, so what this one
want to
does,
include all the years going back, that's would be
Yeah.
useful.
this Appendix A shows what the fund balance is in each of the accounts. And that's something that we derive
We'd love to know what that is.
from June.
Right?
And Maureen asked June about that today, and I think, well, the other day, and I think we'll get some updated information pretty quick, probably. So there's that page, and then the next page is, it just goes into detail on what's been expended
Yeah,
for projects, you know?
that's good.
Nice. Now, I mean, the only change I made to the open space part was I added some language about, you know, the land acquisition.
Right.
So I thought we talked about that as we use money for projects, we kind of incorporate that into our sections.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, what we may, you know, we need to think about this, but maybe in the text, we are very deliberate about what it is we accomplished in the last year. But then we take that out of the text the next year, but it gets included in the table. I mean, otherwise the text
Right.
in the body is going to get rather cumbersome, perhaps. But if you put it into a table format on the following year, you know, so you really highlight what you accomplished in the last year in your text, and then replace that with what you've accomplished the next year in your text, and throw it into the table the following year.
I like it.
Maybe, you know, we can.
Yeah.
Now, so there's community housing, and then
Is there?
look what you've got to look forward to, June.
I like the status column also, though.
Yep.
Yeah,
Especially because it also, if someone's looking at it, it's like, wow, look at all the stuff that we've accomplished with
Right.
CPA funds.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
There's all the rec ones, yeah.
Yep. Multiple CPA projects at one location.
So the Bullard House would show up perhaps over time as a, you know, as you fund the different phases of that, perhaps.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, especially the architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did they buy a boiler for their town office
Just said
building?
that, Carolyn.
What the heck? That's like
Wow.
so not a thing.
It's
Wow.
historic.
Well, sure. So we could buy a boiler for the 1870 town hall, but not for the town offices.
I was just
Maybe,
thinking
who
that
kn-
septic,
It's not far-fetched, I guess.
right,
What
right.
if you buy an antique boiler?
There you go.
That would work.
And that's the last page, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's-
that's just an idea, but if we thought it had merit, it's something that, I think we could ask Maureen to just simply take what we voted, because everything's pretty much in progress still. But just throw a table together that shows what we voted at the 2 town meetings.
And it's certainly easier to start it now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you willing to help us with that, Maureen?
Of course.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and yet I agree, Carolyn, best to start at the beginning. versus
Yeah.
trying to-
Yeah, even if we decide to scrap it,
Right.
there's 3 things right now, 4
Right.
things.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop screen sharing and I'm gonna look for the Concord thing that I saw earlier today. And I will let you know if
Now,
I.
do you want to screen share your comment? Your
Uh,
change of text?
I can.
And then we can bring up Julie's after that.
All right. Let me find that. I did email it to everybody.
Yeah, I have that email.
All right. Oh, geez, where am I? I've got so many tabs open.
Right?
It's crazy.
Yep.
Minimize some of this stuff.
Oh, damn it.
Actually,
Is it easier to just email it? And we can just open our emails?
no, I'm seconds away.
Oh, good, good.
All right. Now let me get you guys back.
Mhm.
And ready, Tim?
I'm ready.
Magic.
Wow. How do you do it?
Right, so the table would go here in this front section.
Well, they
Okay.
put it as appendices. But I mean, what do people think? Should we throw it right in at the beginning and let people jump at it as soon as they open the document? That makes sense? Or would you like to see it as an appendix at the end?
I say show it to them up front.
I mean, that's why they might be revisiting the plan on an annual basis, is to get that synopsis, right?
Right.
How's everybody else feel about that?
Think it'll get people's attention.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, wow, they've done all of these things. And if that's all they're looking for, well, then there it is right there. And
Yeah. Well, we can certainly experiment with that as the
Oh.
addition to the front, right off.
Can I just make a comment as a
Go ahead.
observer?
Oh, yeah.
I would just say, if you didn't want it to become this big thing that, as more and more things happen, is you could put past years information in an appendix, but like just put whatever the current, the things that were done in the most recent term, so that those things are right up there up front, so people can say like, this was the most recent stuff that was accomplished, in a complete list be put in the appendix.
Yeah.
Because I could just, you were just showing a list of another town and like all the stuff they had done. That might be, a little overbearing.
right. I guess I was thinking of it kind of formatted the same as the annual reports. You know, so at the beginning of, before you get to the actual, each department's annual report, there's all the town information, and there is a list of all the conservation land. There's a list of all the offices. There's, you know, there's all the lists there.
Mhm.
But either way,
Well, the nice thing is it's going to be a standalone section, so we can experiment and try it out in the front, see what it looks like. If it, I mean, right at the beginning, it's not going to be that long, so
Yeah, I agree.
that single
Right.
page could stay there, and then as time passed, if we got to the point where we said, whoa, you know, we could begin to appendicize it and throw it in the back as well as the front, so.
yeah, I
Good.
think the Concord report was like 86 pages long.
Yeah,
Or
West
their
Newbury's
plan.
West Newbury's is quite lengthy. Well, not that long, but lengthy, so.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce your change here?
Sure. So I didn't really change any of, I didn't at all change any of the open space goals or anything. And I just, you know, 2022, our land purchase, and then just a little bit about kind of why how CPA was important to the project and why the project was important.
Great.
Yeah,
Would
I added it up. There's like, if you go from Rack Meadow down to Lyman Road and from Linden over into Northborough, so about 1,000 acres.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
So when you make that statement at the end, did Sudbury Valley trustees say to you, this is getting to be pretty significant, or did you just? put it together yourself?
I actually believe Walter told me that.
Okay,
So. I-
Caroline,
Yeah,
did we get a grant for this?
we
Or
did.
reimbursement? Well, I think it should be in there then.
Okay,
It's just a one statement.
okay. Yeah, yes, I thought about putting that in there, and then I wasn't sure like how to word them, but I'll figure out a place to put it in. I also sent this to all the conservation commissioners, and we're gonna look at it tomorrow night and see if any of them have any input also.
good.
But I will not be here at our next meeting.
Right.
Bahamas?
Yeah. Huh?
You going to the Bahamas?
Texas.
Oh.
Not quite as good,
Florida's
but
not
So anything else people want to add or comment on in regard to the addition of this text?
so, but I will add language about the grant.
Good.
I saw a poster in the library today about trails, using the trails on Sunday, having self-guided tours. I thought the poster was really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, good. Actually, SVT did that.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, no, they're
good.
having trail day.
Yeah.
Good.
Excellent.
Do you want to bring up Julie's?
I was just gonna ask you if you wanted me to.
Mine's pretty uneventful.
Yours, so while I'm opening the email, finding the email and opening it, what did you, I noticed that you kind of put two sections, like the new wording and the old wording. How much is different?
It's really not a lot of difference. It's just more of an expansion and stronger language, I think. But now that I did take a little time earlier to look at other towns. And I like what Tim was suggesting, that for it to be a little bit more specific with ideas. Can I see that? So I like it. I think it can definitely be stronger. More specific is what I mean. So that's the goals changed just with different language, where the recreational land was protected, expanded, accessibility for all.
Right, so this was the old bullet points.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which I thought were a little, I think it was just too much. It was too much. And I think
Right.
it was saying a lot of the same stuff.
well, I think we were trying to fill some space last year.
Oh, right. I appreciate that. I do. It was a great start. Right. It was like a starter home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. I appreciate you doing it. But I think what I have too can definitely still be stronger. I like comparing to what other towns have already created and using that to move forward.
So if we're going to follow the model that Carolyn is suggesting, we'd include in your section
Yeah.
a report on the 100,000 for tennis and basketball court that's in progress, the 20 that went for the sign and the booth, and the fact that the sign is up and functioning, and that the booth is in progress as well, right? So
Okay.
I guess we're all comfortable with the notion of including in the text. Is that what we're saying? We'd included in our section what we were either in progress or recently completed.
Okay, a little blurb there.
Yeah, similar to what Carolyn did with the
Yeah.
open space money. In June, I would suspect that, you could do the same thing with historical.
Yeah,
Report on the 100,000 and the 100,000 and the 5, I guess, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And then would we want to just under housing until something actually happens with that? Well, do we want to put
Well, we
the housing
trust.
something about that?
You could certainly throw a line in there. What do you think, Eloise? Just we could put a line in at the end of the text saying that we voted to create a housing trust, and that one will be appointed, or members will be appointed over the course of the remainder of the year, and it'll be up and functioning next year, or something like that.
Perfect. Yes.
Sounds good.
Right, so is that where the housing trust stands?
Yeah, there's 3 people that have shown an interest in being appointed, and I've been trying to find at least a 4th, thinking that if there's going to be 5, it'd be nice if there were 4 members to start with at least. And I think we can pull that off.
Tim,
Yep.
one of the housing partnership members asked, once the housing trust is up, does that mean that the housing partnership would dissolve?
No.
Please?
No, sorry.
Okay.
But if everyone on the housing partnership becomes a member of the housing trust, then you don't have to have separate meetings.
That's great.
No, there was one town that I participated in a forum and they had a housing trust, a housing partnership, and a housing authority. And they all work cooperatively to support multiple ventures. So no, it's not automatic that you dissolve and disappear. But I think we could review the model that other smaller towns use with it, do develop a trust and decide whether, trying to hold together two of these entities is whether it's necessary, what their functions that each can accomplish that others might not be able to, and then decide from there. But the goal is to, as we do this update to the housing production plan and update the master plan housing section, that we stimulate some interest on the part of the town. So on the 16th, no, 12th. Is it the 12th, Carolyn?
For,
October 11th, there'll be a housing forum in the 1870 Town Hall
right,
that people will be invited to. There'll be a Zoom option as well, but that's the effort to push this housing section. Get interest and get the housing production plan created, and then get the trust appointed and get all these pieces moving so we can begin to apply some of these funds that we've got in CPA to housing.
I swore I put that on my calendar.
So that's,
I'm sure it's the 11th.
yeah, it's a planning board meeting night,
Oh, I did.
right?
Yep, I did. I just put it in a way that I didn't see that at first.
6:30 in the 1870 Town Hall. Yep. So Julie, are you suggesting that after you've looked at some of these other towns, you want to manipulate your text a little more?
I think I would like to do that, yes.
You've got one comment in there in the old one that says, with special attention to handicap accessibility and adult, senior, and toddler recreation needs.
Yeah,
I like that.
all
So
right,
when you,
I can add that back in.
I mean, you say something very similar, trying to
Yeah.
meet the growing needs of the community. You talk about accessible to all residents, but the fact that you mentioned those particular entities last time, I thought added some strength. So
Yeah, okay, I'll put that back in. Thank
it's
you.
up to you.
Right, the
So
other, one thing I saw, Julie, right here, says to meet the needs of the growing community. I
Yeah,
would switch those around and say to meet the growing needs of the community.
okay,
That the needs are growing, not the community.
yep.
Good. Yeah.
The community is growing.
But yeah, that was, thank you, Eloise. That was my point, is that we are a growing community. And we do have growing needs too, but okay. To meet the growing needs of the community. All right,
Well, although, I mean,
Yeah, either way, just,
you've got growing needs of the community in the first one, and then in the second one, you're using this other idea about the growing community.
no, I mean the growing community, not the growing needs.
You meant that in the first section too, the first bullet?
oh, you did, yeah, growing needs of the community.
Needs, growing needs.
Ah,
When necessary, new recreation.
Preserve and expand this in election land to meet the growing needs of the community. No, I would say the growing needs in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's correct.
And then I was wondering in that first one, it seems like in that first one, you talk about new recreational land. But
So
you
I-
talk about preserving, protecting.
And protecting. Yeah, I struggle with that one too.
I mean,
Because-
do you want to just say, you know, the expansion of new recreational land to meet the growing needs of the community? And then in the next one, preserve, protect, and expand when necessary existing recreational land to meet the needs of the growing, well, you know, anyway.
Sure. I see what you're saying. My struggle there was when a land becomes new, is it then, you know, new fields? Are they new fields or are they existing at that point? So I
Right.
just want to differentiate to continue to protect those new pieces of land. I'll work it, but I see. You know what I mean?
Good, all
All
right.
right.
So in regard to housing, we're going to include the comment about the housing trust. We're going to add some of these changes that Julie's going to continue to work on. We've got
Diligent.
Conservation Commission, you're going to add a sentence in regard to
The grant.
the grant. And June's going to work on some, you get the gist of what we're trying to accomplish here, June, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And then Maureen's gonna create a table for us that we can insert into the front. MJ, did you have any thoughts about modifications we need to make to the main text?
So I was looking at a few things. Most of it is just updating, you know, where it says 2021 to 2022. There's a point where it mentions the number of towns that
Yep.
have CPA, which when we wrote to 187, that's now 189. So like when we have a Google document, I can, you know, update that. The talk of adding a table about what money coming in May, you know, it said how much money we had gotten matched from the state for last fiscal year. So either in a table that's including more of this information or just in that point, we'd want to have the update for detail. Again, that's, you know, once there's a Google document to make that change. And so the one other thing I noticed looking through it was just whether we were keeping the due dates applications need to be in the I recall
The dates on the,
all that being, I forget where we had settled on it, but in the plan it has the June 1st, December 1st deadline. So whether we're sticking with that or if we're changing.
yeah, so we're going to talk about the application
That-
process a little later, so you can update that section based on what we decide from that discussion.
Yeah,
It almost seems as though having a paragraph that speaks specifically to how much we've got this year in terms of how much we generated and how much we were matched might be appropriate in the text, just the same way we're doing that with each section, as to the specific activities that were involved with historic or rec or open space or housing that year. And then do the same thing with a statement somewhere in the text in the beginning, somewhere that you're comfortable including it. And then include it as a table that evolves over time with additional information year to year. So we're sort of following the same format. Does that make sense? Did he freeze? He's frozen? No, he's there.
I'm there. Yeah, no,
Does that make sense to you?
It's just every, fifth word or something. It's freezing on me. I don't know why my connection has decided
You
to
freeze,
be
but then
problematic. I
we,
thought.
we don't miss what you say. It's just that it freezes, and then when it opens up again, you're following right in sync with where you left off, so.
Oh, I'm missing
Oh,
some of what is being done myself, so I'm
All
glad
right.
I'm at least being heard.
can I ask one? I have another question.
Yeah,
I was looking at the town of Berlin website, and I looked under the CPA. And there's a section in there, information about the Community Preservation Act in general. And it outlines the 10% of the monies raised to be distributed to 3 primary categories. And it says 1, 2, and 3. 1 is open space excluding recreational purposes.
oh,
I
it,
I don't know.
it should be including, right?
I thought maybe it should be including.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Julie, what are you doing here?
I know. I want to be
didn't-
here though. I want to be here. But it's also in parentheses too, and it makes it just seem like 10% is just the open space is its own thing.
Yeah,
Not to be nitpicky,
no,
Well, but that
But-
should be corrected.
right?
we can
okay.
ask Maureen to change that.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Is that all right, Maureen?
Yes, and I've seen a couple of other things, but you and I will have to have another sit down and
Yeah, we can
do
get
it
together
together,
next week,
yeah.
maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, you know what, guys, definitely, if you want something on there, please go ahead and send it to me. I have no, just it's, there, and then I'll always have the chair kind of look at it, and then you guys will look at it when it's up kind of thing. Because like the old hearing for this last year is still up there, but I haven't taken it down yet. It's like, okay, yeah.
People keep showing up for that hearing, don't they? Yeah.
Right?
All right, what else have we got in regard to the plan that we want to cover tonight?
Right. Well, like MJ was saying, the application dates.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Maureen sent around a reworked application form.
Well, let me pull that up.
Oh, my heavens, would you?
I don't see any dates on it. Oh, because it's generic, because it could be either, for either, right? Special town meeting or for annual. That's why there's no dates.
This one, oh no, that was the application.
Can I just ask one question about the text of the
Yes.
the document? I just have to kind of go back and look at what it said. Sorry. So under the part where it was just talking about, it was the 4th bullet talking about housing, or it's the acquisition of preservation open space, land for recreation, acquisition and preservation, rehabilitation and restoration of historic resources. And then it said supportive community housing. The last part of that bullet says this may also include grants directed at helping Berlin residents stay in their homes. I'm just kind of wondering, like, I don't understand what that's getting at. Is that like, I don't understand like what that would be.
There's a multitude of programs. Eloise may be able to speak to this.
Oh, okay. You have a number of elderly. They have a lot of the smaller homes. They have very limited resources. That's not all of them. But if they need a new roof or they need a new furnace, that's what we were talking about. And we ran into a problem with the state because the town cannot help a single person. They can help a group of people, but not a single. But the housing trust, that might be something that the housing trust could take over. And we had it so that if they if they got a reduced price from the Board of Health for their sticker, because they would give them all their information, which they do, then we wouldn't need duplicate access to their personal financial information.
Hmm.
The fact that they were already vetted by the assessors was good enough for us.
So the state's not going to allow us to accept applications?
They wouldn't allow the housing partnership to do that. But they said that was something that perhaps the housing trust could do it.
Could CPA do it though?
I think it ends up being a program that Housing Trust runs, and CPA, this is something we need to investigate, but my sense is that that's an option, that they try to find some of these ways to assist people.
To
You know,
stay
there's
home.
first-time home buyer assistance, there's rental assistance, there's sort of this improvement issue, trying to make a
'Cause
living in
Concord-
place,
The
aging.
Concord
aging.
one had some language about that as well.
Yeah.
I would like to see that then.
I will see if I can find, well,
Thank you.
I can do that right now while we're.
I guess the reason I questioned it is just that I didn't have any, I mean, maybe it's somewhere else, and because I'm so new, I just am not familiar with documentation that would explain what that meant. But to me, it's an extremely vague
Mhm.
thought. So, I mean, if the point of having funds or being able to use Community Preservation Act funds for certain purposes, that doesn't really help me as a resident or, whatever, understand what that is or what the criteria would be. And maybe this isn't the place to do that, but it just seems like, so I guess that's my point. I just read that and I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. And what does that mean exactly? So as long as there's another place where that would be fully understood or explained, great. But I think,
my sense is that when we've got a housing trust, that body will suggest some modifications in the language in the community preservation plan that gets more specific as they begin to fully understand all the options that are at their disposal. Because we're just not, like Eloise
I
said.
thought being vague. It seemed being vague is in some ways advantageous when it was in a state of flux. We want the language to allow
Right, allow flexibility.
Yeah.
what down to without.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I get that at this point, just like, I guess I'm trying to educate myself, or even if it referenced what the housing trust at whatever point,
Mm.
if it's supporting what they do and it references, supporting that work, which under that, it provides the detail. So it's just something to put out there that I'm just trying to learn.
No, I think you're right, though. If we look at these other communities and their plans, they tend to get far more specific and as a result, more transparent about how the money can get utilized. So I think.
Well, I think people would want to understand that. I mean, if you're going to put your money in, it's like, well, vote for this, especially if it has to be renewed, you want to understand, especially if you're going to then list it. I mean, if it's going to be, your Community Preservation Act trust funds were used to put a roof on John Smith's house, people might start to say, well, I'd like a roof on my house. So,
Right.
So that's where I kind of was like, well, what does this exactly mean? So, and I think that the other thing too, is if you're going to start, if you're going to be getting requests, you want to make sure you're really clear as to what kinds of stuff you're going to entertain. So, you know, people don't just assume it's a carte blanche because you didn't create specificity. I mean, maybe it's too early for that, but that's all I meant. I mean, and I see the point, like, you know, if the point of community preservation is to help maintain the affordability of your home, your town, or housing in your town, but, you know, but to me is the point to make sure that, that it's making sure that we're building affordable housing units that stay affordable versus, you know, keeping certain housing stock, or, well, I don't even know what it means. So I guess that's my question. It's a very vacuous, and that language seems to be so broad that it could mean almost anything. So I guess at the moment, I think it's fine, but I think is that housing trust gets to a point, I would think as a member of the committee, I'd want to see, I would want to understand exactly what that means.
Right. So last year when we were kind of all going through, you know, each our own sections, because we don't have any affordable housing owned by the town. We don't have any affordable housing plans per se, but affordable housing gets this chunk of money. We were kind of trying to brainstorm some other ways that the money could be helpful while we were working on a housing trust and, you know, finding other ways to utilize the funds. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, I just think that the whole thing about, you know, grants directed at helping Berlin residents stay in their homes as the housing market does what it's been doing in the last, I mean, that becomes really, it could apply to such a broad spectrum of individuals. I can see where you were going with that. I just think I was just bringing that up.
And it's interesting because a similar question will come up in the historic preservation section, because there is the ability of, you know, for CPA funds to be used by private individuals if their home is considered historic, to get CPA funding to keep it historic in some ways, you know, and that has to do with some of the structural things that might happen. And we don't fully understand that yet either, but it's the same type of question you're asking about in regard to the housing issue. Individual private homeowners having access to CPA funding.
Yeah, benefiting from it financially, yeah.
Well, yeah, if it's helping you maintain your character and a house is designated, or what does that designation mean, or
Right.
yeah, stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, the fortunate thing is there's almost 190 communities that are dealing with CPA. And when you go to the consortium's website, you begin to see all the other things that other towns are doing. So I think it'll help us feel comfortable as we evolve and, you know, you move into some of these new areas. We'll obviously have to have some more detailed discussion about how comfortable we are with the support of some of these projects, but having other towns to compare it to is helpful anyway.
Sure.
And
Thanks, Fred.
it may very well be that it's, you know, something that we ask Maureen to help us with as time passes, and during the winter months, if things are slower for the committee, we may very well ask Maureen to do some research specifically about the uses of CPA money for housing projects in other communities and begin to catalog some of those, so, you know, we could digest it more quickly.
Thanks for listening to that question.
There have been some challenges out there in some communities that I've worked for, so.
Yeah.
Like lawsuits, not fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But Wayne, I think it's good, you know, we were all there last year and understood all of that. It's good to have a fresh set of eyes come in and say, hey, wait a minute, what are you guys talking about? So I appreciate the perspective.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to
definitely.
volunteer.
What do were you able to pull up the application?
Yep. Oh, and I found the Concord CPA plan and emailed it to everybody.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. So here we go.
So Maureen, do you want to share with
It's
us?
so much cleaner than what we had. Oh my
Right,
goodness. Oh, great job, Maureen.
You want to make a pitch for your proposal here?
Yeah, like, so I guess most simply is I think it could be a two-sided page. So when you actually have your applicant in, you're going to have that first page in front of you that's going to give you kind of pretty much those, bullet points that, really help you make the decision. And then the back page would be their summary and, their true pitch. The bottom here, it's kind of similar to some of the forms that we have in the assessor's office, where, the date stamped in, the date that, it would be at your meeting, the date of the decision. So this would always be like that front page of any application that could be, accessed again into the file, all the pertinent information. Like, say you're saying, oh, what year did we do that? So that's what that green is there. And then when the application isn't before the group, there can be that other page that I made that would be basically for your own personal notes. And then that can actually then help you with your town report and then this plan. So it's kind of moves everything. So you can pull up those things from that and go from there. And yeah, and I did it as if it's, just one application. I didn't do a fall or an annual or a fall town meeting, because I just don't know if that's going to be a practice or whatnot. But the cover page that you all had, I didn't touch that. That actually explained the dates, and that's still on the town website, I believe, also. So that was it in a nutshell. Just try to make it as easy and more so even for like just very usable document when you're, you have your applicants in front of you. But it's even the way this is designed for someone that, like I said, that when you're trying to do reports at the afterwards, this is a good way to actually have it all laid out. So that's the pitch.
I think it's fabulous.
Other thoughts?
The only thing I might add is kind of a checkbox if I'm just looking at this, whether we've gotten whether they have a quote, or 3 quotes, or if this is, you know what I mean? So just kind of back up supporting paperwork of some sort. Or is that something we care about for the application?
Well, I'm thinking back to how I estimated the digitization, and I based it on my understanding of what a commercial photographer gets for a full day. It turned out that he was able to do much more in that full day than I had anticipated. But in actuality, that full day cost twice as much. So I didn't have any actual estimate from photographers, but I
Happen to know one very well.
well, yeah, we just use that as a yardstick.
Yeah.
So is this is this the pre-application in a sense? Is this the application that we get when they're first knocking on the door to say, would you consider my project? This is, in a nutshell, what we anticipate we want to do and what it's going to cost. And then if we were to give them that green light to go ahead and flesh out the application with a lot of supporting documents, that follows this? Is that the idea?
Well, I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with my question. If this is the pre-application, or if it's just one, and there's a box that says, backup, however we want to phrase it, and they don't have that at first, and then eventually they do, or they don't, but we still consider the estimate to be reasonable, like in June's case. I don't know that it's an all or nothing kind of thing, but certainly for construction projects or projects that need to go out to bid, or for land, there needs to be some sort of basis for the ask.
Can you just scroll down? Was there a part that was a section that was about notes or something? So if this is your application, is there a section to record, what, there it says notes and comments. That's so generally, but you could be like, putting in there, like, what's the additional, if somebody puts an estimate and there's no backup documentation, or maybe there's a section that, they would put like, what's appended to it. So, you'd know, like, there's,
Yeah, so kind of down here.
They could list what they're attaching to it, like a quotation of this or that. And if us as a committee wants to go back and, if it was just a swag at what the cost is, we could, then notate, in order to further consider this application requires blah, blah, blah. So you can be specific as to, then what you want them to come back with. So it's all part of this. I don't know how you would do that, but that's just.
Well, I think, Wayne, I think that's the advantage to having, and I know it's a little bit of a process, but to having a pre-application, so we could kind of vet that all out. Does it meet so leave this as is, as a pre-application, like Tim was saying, is that what we're doing? And then when you apply, you would have all that information.
So I was thinking of this as the pre-application.
Yeah.
And they come and they talk with you. And then what I've seen in other communities is, and they can be very elaborate, but they can be very simple. But a lot of times it's like a PowerPoint presentation, almost something that could be used at town meetings. And then that last one, when you are actually taking your vote, that would be in there.
Mhm.
Each of you would get this last page for each application. Like, this last page doesn't go to the applicant. It's just a two-sided page with the instructions on the front. But that was my thought, because then they're really basically giving you a proposal, like saying, I want you to hire me, basically, so I can do this project, kind of thing. Not that it's the bids, but that's the way, I've seen it in the past. It's usually a PowerPoint presentation, especially like something like, the tennis courts. Like, you can see how someone could really come in and do a really beautiful, like, here's what you got today, here's where we're going to be at the end of this kind of thing. So this is really just like, does it fit in the boxes? And does it, meaning you have the money for it this year, and you're not going to get a lawsuit because it doesn't fit in the boxes, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that's where I was on it, kind of thing. Yeah.
I like that. And I like your idea about that second phase being in a format that allows a proponent to comfortably go to town meeting and make a really good presentation.
Okay.
I just know there's a word, I think completion date is misspelled. If it's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
Oops. I thought I was just
Don't
off
say
on
that
math
too.
tonight,
I just wanted to say.
up at the front.
I think it says completion instead of, like, is that a word that I don't know?
I
Maybe-
don't know what I
maybe-
was doing there.
Completion.
And,
I
yeah,
went on dictionary to see if I could be if that there was the word.
yeah.
And I'm such a terrible speller, I didn't even notice. I know it's
Actually,
wrong.
I've gotten so dependent on autocorrect, I don't even sometimes even look. I gotta start looking, I guess. kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
usually if it takes it, it seems like I got it right. Yeah.
Small.
So then,
Um,
Maureen, once this application is, because it is a pre-application, there's nothing that happens in between the pre-application and town floor, except for the
No,
person building out
it-
the project.
Because the pre-application comes and then, like you said, we're giving them the green light that we believe the application is appropriate for CPA funding and that we feel we have the funds and that, we'd look favorably upon their fleshing it out. Then they come back and really
yes.
put the robust proposal together. And then, as Maureen has talked about, in Groton, they have a public hearing where they review the applications in a much more formal setting than we did the last time. So that's something that we're not required to do that, but we could decide that was something, maybe in 2023 we wanted to do.
Well, that's one of the things about this, like in this section here, it just, if you're calling this a pre-application, this is almost makes it look like it's presented and you're making a decision. It's not like you're making a preliminary decision of like, yes, this fits, no, this doesn't fit, or come back. So that's where maybe if this is going to get, but that's what I'm trying to say. If it's a pre-application, instead of making somebody refill out all this information, does it become more of a flexible document where you respond to this and say, initial whatever. So I don't know.
I mean, as a pre-application, there really isn't much to this though, Wayne. It's they've decided what category it fits under, what their estimate is for the budget. They haven't perhaps gone out for multiple bids, but they've got a ballpark figure.
So what do you
I mean, that's-
recommend? You're not recommending, you're recommending that they are able to come back with a more fleshed out plan, or it's just you're killing it right there at the pre-application stage?
Right,
Yeah,
maybe we just want to change the word recommended.
Yeah.
To accepted,
Or
something, that says, yes, this meets the initial criteria.
right, meets criteria,
Right.
doesn't meet criteria versus a recommendation doesn't I think that's a good point.
Right.
I agree.
Is that all right, Maureen?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think those are good points.
Right.
And then what we're saying is we say to someone, you've got the green light. Now we want you to, it's similar to what Maureen shared with us from Groton for the tennis courts and the basketball up there. You end up with a proposal that really fleshes out all the information that you need to be able to comfortably go to town meeting and say to folks, this is something that can be, accomplished within the guidelines of CPA, and we have the money and they have some good firm figures as to what it's going to cost. And we think you ought to approve it, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about the timeline there for that, like that Groton proposal for the tennis courts took, I imagine a long time to build out.
Yep.
So a pre-application comes in, we vet it, we recommend it, or say you give them the green light. And now then that whoever's doing it has to come up with the plan, right? And say, what is the deadline? December for special town meeting? Is that what I read? Is that what you guys decided on last meeting? September 1st and December 1st?
Yeah, December 1st for the annual, and
Yeah.
we were talking about September 1st for a special.
And that
Yeah.
was for pre-applications or applications? I would imagine pre-apps,
Those were pre-apps
think
when we put
applications
them
was
into our first plan.
right?
All right, so pre.
Right, because then that gives a couple of more months before we need final recommendations for the warrant.
Now, that's true for the annual, certainly, because you'd have December and January to put everything together, and then you'd end up with our making a recommendation in February to have it included on the warrant when it closed later in February. So because we don't know when a town meeting might occur in the fall, in the future, in any year, September 1st might be too late. Because if you think about, if we give a green light to someone September 1st, and that gives them, if you wanted a comparable amount of time, it would mean you'd have September and October to come to us in November with the idea that maybe you'd have a town meeting, and if the warrant might close in November sometime, but
I'm looking back
It was June.
at what we had in the plan for last year, and it had October 1st and April 1st as the deadlines for pre-application. So the December 1st and June 1st are down for the actual application. That's what we had
Oh.
down before
October 1st and April 1st.
for the pre-application. So
So October 1st is for
For
a pre-application
the
for
pre-
an annual town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And April 1st would be for, Maureen has raised some interesting questions about whether, I mean, a lot of towns she's familiar with don't even entertain CPA proposals at a special town meeting.
Why is that? What's the advantage to that?
Yeah, you know what, I don't even know if I ever heard the reason why, other than it was just, but some of the towns were bigger, so we could actually go 2 or 3 nights for a town meeting.
Uh,
So they kind of zeroed things in on what they wanted, 6 months kind of thing. So-
But wouldn't it make a difference too? I mean, based on, what the proposal is? I mean, if you're talking about, purchasing a piece of land for, preservation, I mean, I think back to the plot of land that's now being developed into housing next to the elementary school. I mean, some of those decisions, they move very quickly. So, acquiring a piece of land might, the opportunity might not last an entire, you know what I mean? So, I mean, some things might move fast, whereas some things might move slow. So,
Sure, if it's chapter land and the town has to exercise its right
Right.
of first refusal, that's only, I think, 180 days that you have to do that. So that certainly wouldn't be able to only be at annual town meeting. I do know in Hudson, when I was working with them on the plastic bag ban, they were reluctant to have the plastic bag ban be on the fall town meeting, because their mode of using the special town meeting is only for housekeeping items.
Mhm.
right, but
Anything else would have to be in the annual.
yeah, but we talked about that. That was brought up in the meeting that I attended last week, is that, Berlin doesn't tend to operate in that same modality. So
Correct.
it would already set a precedent of, is what I understood, of doing stuff at the interim town meeting. So.
Right.
And if we, for example, ask the Ag Committee to wait on their proposal because we want to fund some others, but we think there's merit in theirs, having them wait, a full year seems a little bit of a penalty in a way, because they've accommodated us by
Well,
being
I would
willing to
think-
take a second seat,
I wouldn't want to be in a position where our business is what's causing there to be a fall town meeting, but seems given here, how long the annual one can sometimes go, that if there is a special town meeting in the fall and we have business to do, it would be a more efficient use of time to be able to put articles on that meeting and, not clog up the next,
People get grumpy if the annual
You're
goes
not
too
going to
long.
reduce an annual town meeting to less than a night. You're going to be there in the fall. You might as well,
Use it.
13 articles instead of that seems to be, better used. Whereas
Yeah,
I mean, we all know
three
too.
additional articles that, the spring one might push to the next day.
Well, we all know too that if you tend to hit on a hot topic that becomes controversial that CPAC was putting forward, people would show up.
Right.
Maureen, your sense right now is that there probably won't be a special town meeting this year.
Yeah, well, Kristen's in the offices. I haven't heard anything about it. And the only other, I did just think of something else too. The town accountant, I don't know if you recall this dialogue with her, Tim.
Yeah.
She also likes it best in spring because she really knows what the numbers truly are. Like never promising to spend something with the anticipation of something coming. Is that how June worded it to us?
It is, although what we've tried to do, very consciously, is to not expend any money that's from anticipated revenue,
Yeah.
only money that's already in our hands. And so we used some money from anticipated revenue in 2023 budget in our proposals that we voted on in May. But it was a limited amount of the total amount of, of the 560,000, I think we committed less than 50,000 for CPA out of that. And that still left, for instance, the housing group right now has a considerable amount of money in their specific designated fund that's got nothing to do with 2023. It's from 2021, 20, and 22. So the opportunity for them to expend that, if as long as we put it in their bucket, it's there. And I think if there is an article that is, if there is going to be a special town meeting, the opportunity to spend some of that money at that special town meeting where it's in hand, shouldn't complicate June's situation too much, I think. So again, she and I and Stuart, we need to have some more conversation about when those funds are available and all that sort of stuff. Good. Okay, so we're comfortable with this really being the pre-app.
Right. And just changing the recommended.
Yep. Is that all right with everybody?
yes. So there will be no,
Hmm?
there will then be no actual application. There'll just be a proposal plan.
Yeah, there's this pre-app, and then this becomes part of a larger proposal that gets fleshed out with all that extra. So
Do we
it may
want to,
very well be that we want
Call it a
to
pre-app then.
say that, Eloise.
Call it a pre-application,
I
Not-
agree.
community preservation application, community preservation pre-application for funding.
Yep.
And I
And-
think before we go further, I think you should run this by Kristen, just as a matter of courtesy.
Yeah, I'm going to meet with her on Wednesday. So I was going to,
As in tomorrow?
no, as in next week.
Oh, okay.
I think that's my appointed time.
The only other thing that I was gonna
Wednesday.
ask if we wanted to include, if this is gonna be a pre-application, do we want to have a page that we give back to the applicant with feedback? This was not accepted because of XYZ. This was accepted. We need XYZ and LMNOP from you in order to consider it. It's always the
That would
LMNOP
probably
that
be
gets
helpful
you.
to have a feedback form.
What
Go
was that?
ahead,
Amy?
MJ.
It's tough.
Oh, oh,
MJ, we picked up some of what you said, but not all of it.
I keep missing. It keeps freezing on me.
Just use the chat.
Yeah, that's true.
I was, it would be good to have a form to have the feedback. I mean, just email it is all well and good to, give that back, but
yeah, and I think
hope
a
for
copy
their
of that,
efforts.
yeah, a copy of that goes with the pre-application again for
Mhm.
further documenting.
Good.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
So to continue this and bring in all the additional material that we've talked about tonight, we've got a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday.
Mhm.
How does that work for people? Carolyn can't be here, but if we have a quorum, we could, and Wayne should be appointed by them, so Julie's that good for you?
Yep, that's great for me. Thank you.
And MJ,
What day again?
a week from tomorrow?
28th.
I might be, yeah, I might be a little late, but,
7:30,
Would work for me.
and it works for you, Wayne?
Mhm.
And Eloise, we know where you'll be.
Thank,
Swearing in Wayne.
Wayne and I have worked before in the past.
Long ago and ongoing, right?
Yep.
Anything else you want to talk about in regard to the plan this evening?
Can I just make one comment? It was interesting as we were just talking about this application. I don't even know if that's a place that you would be part of what you report on, but I mean, there might be things that people are proposing that we're not approving. I don't know if there's a place for that you would want to ever report on that. I mean, the grids that you were talking about are gonna record things that are in progress that have been approved, but I don't know if it's even necessary to demonstrate or identify. It could just be part of verbiage of how many applications were received, or that could just be part of that. But it's just something to keep in mind, because you might get stuff that gets it just demonstrates. I mean, all of that takes action, and so it's just something to think about. I don't think it requires a change to the plan, but when we were talking about pre-application and the possibility that you're assessing whether things do or don't fit, that's all energy, and it just demonstrates the value of having this, because it's putting things up for consideration. And I don't know if those things, if you approve something or it's on hold or a project is being reconsidered or whatever. So it's just something to think about where that might fit going down, but I don't think it needs to be, need to be adjusted now. But that's just a
Good.
thought.
Well, those could be captured in the annual report,
Sure. That's all I was trying to figure
Yeah.
out. Like,
right?
Good. Okay. So we'll meet next Wednesday. We'll try to package this up in such a fashion that we could then look forward to a hearing date. Good.
Great.
June, you're welcome to stick around and listen to the rest of our conversation if you want, because we're going to get some other items on the agenda. One is this outstanding question about the historical commission needing to appoint at some point someone to serve as your representative. So if you do have a chance to talk to your members and someone's eager to join us, we'd be happy to have them.
Well, we would hope that our new member might take this on, because the rest of us all have a hat within the commission. I feel a little guilty about asking her so quickly, but if she needs time, I will just have to stand in.
And I
until
think
she's ready.
we'd welcome your participation next week if you're around on Wednesday, or you can send us the modifications that you'd like to propose. But having somebody from the commission to be able to vote down the road, it's going to be beneficial. We can survive with the 6 members we've got. We've gotten along with 5 for a while, and we can survive with 6. So I don't think you need to rush anybody necessarily, but particularly if they're a new member on your board. But we know you're keeping it in mind because you want to make sure you get good representation
Yes,
at the table.
for sure.
So good.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in, and can you be here next Wednesday or?
Yes, I just looked at the calendar, and my other meeting is in the afternoon.
Nice.
So
Great.
I'll be all.
Good planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, June.
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks, June.
Maureen, do you want to talk about CP3?
Well, we got all our projects in with the coalition, but on 2 days before the deadline. So that's all set, and little anticlimactic, we thought, like they didn't give us our thanks very much. Like we were calling them saying, did you get it? Did you get it? And to that point too, all of you have also been updated, made sure that they had your emails and everything. So you should start getting things through your emails as far as any kind of information that they might have. Like, I think one of the last ones that came through was talk to your rep, state rep, to make sure, they still do the matches and everything too. So that's pretty much it. And then did ask June, town accountant, she hasn't gotten the CP1 and CP2 yet done, but I think things are going to be smoothing out there where now Kristen's on board. So yeah, so you're in good shape as far as that goes. Those things have been all updated.
Yeah, Wayne, what we're talking about is this CP3 report that we're required to submit by September 15th on an annual basis that outlines what the status is of funding that we've allocated. So you get assigned a number, and then that number stays with that project through its progress. And so the good news was that as we typed stuff in, we did get numbers, which evidently meant that that's what you know, was a record now. But it, like Maureen said, it was kind of, you scratched your head and said, I hope they got this. And when we talked to the consortium folks, he got right back to us and said, yep, they've got it. Don't you worry, don't lose sleep. So that was good. And it was painless. It wasn't, you know, it was fill in the box primarily. So it worked out pretty well. But now those projects have all got
Right.
numbers, and Maureen knows she can just go in and click that account and add the information as we progress over time. So that was good.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you, Maureen.
Now, we, account balances, we don't have any updated information from June in regard to what's in each bucket right now, as I understand it, right? She'll be getting us information as she gets an opportunity. And then anything that committee members want to update us on. Julie, the scoreboard is in, right?
Yeah, scoreboard's in. It's super great actually, because my husband's a techie, so you can just download this app and that's how you access. You actually change the numbers, you know, strikes, the outs, right? You know, it's really neat. It's really fast and neat.
Good.
So that's great. It looks awesome. We used it the other day for a game. So it's very exciting.
Yay.
Yeah.
good.
I know, we're really psyched.
Well, it's nice to see the projects beginning to show up. And now, in regard to conservation, the
Yes.
last time we met, did I say that we would talk to, had I talked to Stuart? And he explained how the funds come back to us, or had I?
I think you had that, or you asked and then sent an email.
So
Yeah, I don't
essentially,
think, I don't, yeah,
yeah,
I
so
don't think there was a final.
I mean, he left some stuff up in the air, which still we haven't answered. So we know that from what he has said, the money that's coming from the state in response to the MVP grant that we got for helping out with the acquisition of the Linden Lyman Horseshoe Pond land. If it came out of conservation's bucket, it goes back into conservation's bucket. So we took money from several years from conservation, so we can add up those numbers and that money would go back into that fund, that bucket. And then the remainder goes into our general fund.
Because I think that was the question, Tim, wasn't it? That if you got the money back, would it be then immediately available to spend, correct? Is that how I understood what the question was?
And that's the other part of the question, and Stuart couldn't answer that, and he said, use your, you know, Department of Revenue folks to help you answer that question. And like we've said, June's pretty tied up right now, and Kristen's aboard now, so hopefully June will get an opportunity to begin to pursue some of these questions with a little more time, and then we get a better answer. Stuart, I don't think was positive. He wasn't comfortable saying, no, that money's available immediately. It was almost like that money needs to go through a town meeting process and get voted as
But
available.
if it was voted available already and it goes back to the same fund that it was voted available.
Well, I think we could argue that if it goes back to conservation and it was voted for conservation, that it's, to me, it's clear that that money ought to be available immediately, but I'm not as confident about the money that goes into the general fund. If it goes to the general fund, then it's not the budgeted reserve, you know, and so
Yeah, it would, because it
Budgeted
would,
reserves, the account that we can pull from, as I understand
But
it.
didn't it come from budgeted reserve? It would have to because we spent it.
It did come from budgeted reserve, but Stuart wasn't as certain about where that money goes, whether it goes into the general fund or whether it goes to budgeted reserve. So,
So that's an interesting thing for us to keep in mind going forward. If like with the historical grant,
right,
do we have to think about where we pull the money from? If the money's going to go back into that same account?
the Stuart has always said to use the money that's been placed into the three buckets first, because then the money goes, and I
Back
think
into
his
those
argument, the money
buckets.
goes back to those.
that
Right.
would make sense. Yeah.
Um,
Because you're gonna outlay all the cash out of that, and then the grant's reimbursing you, correct? If I'm not.
Yep.
So if you use it out of that bucket and the town appropriated or had X amount to say this is used for that purpose, if you used that amount and then got reimbursed into that fund, it would seem to make sense that that money would be, usable again, because they approved it. You didn't use them. You didn't use more than what they got. You just used it as like a loan, sort of.
Yeah, and it means it's available, but it can't be expended unless we make a recommendation. And it
true.
can't be
Sure.
expended unless town meeting approves it. So, there's still this check and balance that's there. It's not
Yeah.
like conservation can run away with the 150,000 they might have accumulated in those accounts.
Oh,
But it-
come on.
But it's about knowing you have a total accumulated funding source to do what you want to do. So if
Yeah.
those funds are sitting in there and you can make the recommendation knowing it versus having a question. Because I suppose if the town didn't want to allocate money out of a general fund to fund a specific something in a particular bucket, they could just choose not to do that.
Yep.
But I guess that's the same problem no matter what. I
Right.
guess the question I would have is just, is it less of an ask of the town at town meeting to appropriate funds for a purpose where the money is already in a specific fund where it's allocated, versus to say, hey, I want to take all the funds in this other general fund and use that for this one purpose, which makes it seem not even, obvious, because to me it just seems that the whole point of these buckets is to make sure that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
No, I agree.
Right. And
That's
right. So I think really it's only relevant for Julie and I for recreation and conservation. So if we both have both have items on the warrant, or, at whatever stage you want to talk about it at, and hers has a reimbursement grant and mine doesn't, or mine does, but hers doesn't, do we make sure we allocate funds so that if there is a reimbursement, it goes back into that fund? I guess is all I was really trying to say.
You'll have
And it
to
was-
go over it every time.
Say that again, Eloise.
You'll have to fight over it every,
It's a good thing Julie and I like each other.
that is true.
Can I just ask a question too about those buckets though, just because I guess I don't understand some of this funding part, just for my future understanding, is if you get X amount every year based on that, if for some reason you didn't have a plan to spend it, then that accumulates. So those buckets are not even. Right now they tend to be even perhaps, but they aren't going to always be even. You could accumulate over 2 or 3 years because you're anticipating something big where, you might not have gotten this grant and you want to purchase whatever it is for
Right.
conservation.
Yep.
Yeah, so now housing has probably 150,000 in CPA designated money in their bucket. Historic doesn't have anything. In fact, they've probably taken some from 23. Conservation and Rec don't have anything. They've taken a little from 23. So, I mean, you're right. You have the opportunity to leave your money alone if you choose to, because you anticipate, 2 or 3 years down the road, some use that is going to use all of it. And you're more confident that you can go to town meeting and say, we've already got 200,000 in our account, but we need another 150 from the budgeted reserve. And you're right, town meeting may look at that more favorably than they would if you'd expended everything continually out of your account, and now you're trying to you're not in as much competition for that budgeted reserve if you've got some of your own money that you've held. So
Right. Yeah, I would think you'd get questioned more if you're trying to take a general pool, because then it's like, are you hogging the resource? So yeah.
And if you look at what West Newbury had in that report, I mean, there was quite a difference in the amount of money that was available in those different buckets based on what had already been expended. So good. Other updates from members?
Do we have to vote on Carl's proposal, or are we just letting that sit till we know?
Well, we haven't had a formal presentation, and we don't know if we're going to have a town meeting.
Okay.
So, I would think that we'd have a clear indication in the next couple of weeks with Kristen's arrival and some communication between the select board and June and Kristen as to whether they actually need a special town meeting. Like Maureen has said, that it may not come to pass. And if it doesn't, then, that proposal's on hold till the spring.
We've
And it's
also
gonna-
had town meetings for only 1 or 2 things on a warrant.
Yeah, but I think as MJ said, I don't know as,
They're different every time,
I don't know as
whether you have a grant or
right.
I mean, it would be, in my humble opinion, it would be better to have a town meeting in December. And even if it's just the fencing, so that they can make plans that it can go up as soon as possible.
Now, you've got how much does a town meeting cost us?
Maybe right now about $800.
Oh,
Well,
well,
that's not as bad as I thought. Is that just out of the town clerk's budget for, I mean,
Hell no.
No, I'm just saying,
Eloise wouldn't spend her money on a special town meeting.
No, but if it depends. I mean, if you're only having 1 or 2 articles, you can send it out on one piece of paper, put it together, and you know what I mean? It's not like a big booklet.
right? Well,
But
like I said,
basically,
I'm meeting with Kristen next Wednesday, so I'm gonna try to push the issue of, I mean, I believe the town ought to set an automatic plan to have a special town meeting on an annual basis, and if we don't need it, we can cancel it, but
you
at least
can't.
then, pardon?
You can't.
Well, if you don't ever open the warrant for it, you don't have to hold it.
If you make it a bylaw, those are your rules and regulations.
I'm not, you're telling me that you, if you have no business to hold for a special town meeting, that you've still got to hold it?
Not if you have no business.
Well,
but
that's what I'm saying.
your
I mean,
bylaw says you're going to have a second. Then what are you going to do on the second? Usually some towns have, the main one is the business end, the special is for zoning.
Right now, Maureen just said that Carlisle, Carlisle,
Yeah, on their website, it's like special town meeting canceled, but because no business.
yeah,
Mm.
and they automatically have a special.
Yeah, they pretty much, it's funny, I don't think it's part of their bylaws, but it was
It's
consistently
just a routine thing.
thing.
correct, yeah.
I guess
It's been
that's
more
where
of
I'm
a
headed. I'd like to
practice.
see us routinely say that there's, anticipate that there's going to be a special town meeting in the fall and select a date way back in the spring, so you know when it's going to be. And, have it compatible with the town clerk's schedule for elections and all that sort of stuff. And then if you don't need it, you don't need it. I guess I'm not talking, there had been some talk about a bylaw or a vote at town meeting, but that would not be the preference necessarily. Anyway, I'll meet with Kristen next week and see what's up.
Yeah, it would certainly be easier for this committee if we knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would think other
Good night,
committees
kids.
Other updates from the committee? Everybody all set? And is there any public input? I see no one in attendance other than us.
Correct.
And our next meeting is Wednesday, the 28th at 7:30. And Carolyn won't be there, but she's going to share text that if there's anything else she wants included.
Yeah, I'll forward whatever,
Perfect.
if the commission makes a vote. When are we hoping to have the plan completed by?
Well, if we tidy everything up next week, then, Maureen can make those changes in the plan and we can go ahead and have a schedule for a public hearing and then listen to what folks say at that. And if there's some other modifications, then we'd make those. Otherwise, we'd vote on it the night of the public hearing, I would think, and finalize it at that point. So
Okay.
if we'd assume that the public hearing might be
So I have
at
that
our
we-
meeting in October,
on the 18th.
That's the 18th, yeah.
yeah. And
Okay.
so if we're comfortable on the 28th, with what we put together, and we were going to have a hearing on the 18th, it would have to be in the newspaper on the 7th and the 30th. So we couldn't do that. Because it would have to be delivered to the newspaper, ideally on the 26th, the notice for inclusion in the paper on the 30th and the 7th.
Why couldn't we do that?
Why couldn't we put a notice in the paper?
Yeah. That
We
we're gonna have a
can.
public hearing.
We could say we're going to have a public hearing on the 18th if we're comfortable with feeling, we're going to have this polished up to the point where going to the public hearing with the proposal.
Well, the document you're putting in front of them doesn't have to be a final. It's you're having
No,
public.
that's the idea.
Oh, the idea that it's final?
No, it's not final. It's
Right, that's what I
public
mean.
input.
Right.
So I see Carolyn's point. Why not publish it? Because you're going to make your best effort to make it as tight as you can, but you're still open to adjustments. So
Well, and that way we can keep it within our schedule. So
Right.
if people are comfortable with that, we can have a motion to have the hearing on the 18th. And then if we're comfortable with that, then we'll get it posted for the 30th and the 7th.
I make a motion that we have our public hearing October 18th.
And we have a second,
A second.
and we'll have any other comment about that? Okay, we'll do a roll call on that. So it's Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
and Tim is aye. So we're going to have a hearing on the 18th of October. We'll get the hearing notice put together and we'll get it to the newspaper by the 26th. And then when we meet on the 28th, we'll polish up the plan as much as we possibly can, and we'll put that on our website, and we'll refer to the link in our notice for the public hearing, and people can go look at the plan on the, they can pick it up on the website.
Okay.
Is it 7:30?
Yeah, let's do that.
So the motion will have the time of 7:30, okay.
Good.
And yeah, I'll get conservation's portion to Maureen. Probably
Good.
makes the most sense ahead of time.
Yep,
I'll do the
Okay.
same with,
great. And MJ, the changes that you've got, you're going to send to Maureen.
Actually, I'll actually see June Miller. She actually does her tax write-off in the assessor's office. So
So
I'll
when
tell
she-
her, well, I think she'll probably be in, I'm hoping tomorrow, because what's interesting, I'm actually got an assessor's class on Thursday. So my next question is more of a housekeeping thing. What time does the public hearing thing need to be to the newspaper for the 26th? You know what anybody know what their time cutoff is?
It's usually,
Actually, I can get it to them on the 27th if we really need to, but
Okay.
I
I mean, I can get,
you and I can work on that. We'll probably get together next week, right?
yeah, but Monday's the 26th, so.
Yep. So what I'll do is let me generate the hearing notice,
Okay,
and I'll try to get that to you tomorrow so you can see what we're talking about.
okay,
And then I can get it to the newspaper on Monday.
okay.
Would you
And then-
also get a copy to me so I can post it?
Of
No.
course. No, of course I will. And then, Tim, why don't we, we're meeting on the 28th, you know how I usually do the afternoon hours?
Yep.
I'll just we'll just meet on Monday at 2:15 instead. Because there was no advantage to me meeting at 2:15 prior to your meeting, because everything that would need to have been done was 2 days ago. So does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay, so you and I will change to well, I mean, you don't have to be there, but I'm going to come in. I'll be there on Monday versus Wednesday is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay.
And
then
you're
we'll-
comfortable with hosting our meeting on the 28th?
Well, you know what's interesting? I couldn't get in tonight. Like Mary had said, oh, anybody can do it. So I said, all right, let me try to go in a little bit early tonight, but I had to wait for somebody else. So I don't know if I can do it from my home computer. I have managed meetings, but it always has been like on my work computer.
Well, Carolyn manages it on her home computer.
yeah.
Posted
you were
cultural council.
You were able to log in
Yep, I was waiting there.
and
for
you
the
saw
host
the
to
meeting.
start. Yeah, like basically it was like just as if I was, just coming in, and then it said, wait for host to start. And I couldn't get around, wait for host to
I
start.
wonder if I had already started or something.
And then it came up to be panelists, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I wonder if I had already I wonder if it was just a matter of timing, if you and I logged in at the same time
Maybe,
and I beat you.
Beat me,
Just
yeah.
put just that much.
yeah.
did you sign in using the admin sign in?
I just used the link from the town website.
Oh, so you have to
Oh.
sign an admin to like run the meeting, run the webinar.
So Julie, do you know how to do it?
Yep, I do, because I do them for rec.
Oh, then can you open the meeting next week?
Yeah, probably.
Perfect.
As long as I know what channel, if I'm using
Yeah.
the board or the town
Right.
administrator.
I go in on, I think I usually start on the town administrator channel, and if it's not there, I sign in on the select
with you.
board channel. That's what I had to do tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for
So,
sure.
All right.
So
Well, if
yeah,
you,
Maureen, I can easily do that too. I can also send you the thing Margaret sent me forever ago.
Okay.
Or it's up to you. I can either open it.
No,
or-
why don't you go ahead and do it? Because
You got it.
know, then that way I can do my thing here and.
Sure, sure, perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect.
yeah,
Okay.
that
Awesome.
didn't even occur to me, Julie. That makes sense.
As
Yeah.
long as
Yep.
I don't have to do it.
As long as I don't have to do it from the airport in Dallas.
Right, perfect. Perfect. Okay, that's great. That's great. So will everybody be here next Wednesday then? We have a quorum?
Yep,
Okay, perfect.
because we'll
Alright, great.
have you, me, MJ, Wayne will be appointed by then. And Eloise will be here. So
Do I have to show up at the select board meeting or participate or get on or no?
You
what
don't
does
have-
Eloise say?
I thought I saw that they were gonna appoint you on the coffee talk.
We are.
Oh, how?
Oh, on Coffee Talk.
Yeah, so
So that's
Thursday-
Well, that's a meeting of the select board.
Right. So
Oh,
Julie, you're on for that night also, the
I am.
22nd. Yes, I just looked at the agenda prior
Oh.
to this meeting. So Julie Lee with some sort of contract.
Oh, right.
finance, Okay, and
Municipal-
then Wayne is right after that. And then what Mary had suggested, and I think she might have reached out to you, Wayne, just go ahead and she didn't yet. So she was like, you could start your ethics situation right before our meeting on Wednesday. You can go see Eloise. She'll be in her office and get sworn in, so.
so Wayne, are you aware that you have to take the state ethics test?
No.
It's very easy, it's multiple choice. It's very-
Somebody,
It's a long slog, but it's multiple choice, and if you get it wrong, you can keep going back until you
Yeah.
get the right one.
so who gives me that information? Where do I get that?
you know what, I'll check back. in-
Whoever appoints you.
Yeah, so Mary was gonna send it to you. I'll check in with her again tomorrow for you, Wayne.
It's possible I missed it, but I don't think
Okay,
Right,
yeah,
yep.
if she says she sent it, please resend it.
And,
okay, sure.
and we have a town code of conduct policy that you have to read and sign.
It doesn't carry over from the last time I did it. Okay.
No, no.
Yeah.
I'm
All
kidding.
right.
I know. All right.
Anything
wanna-
else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And we
Second.
have a second,
Second.
and it's non-debatable.
Bye, everybody.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
and Tim, I.